I was once curious to see, like, could you add too much vanilla? What would happen if you added too much vanilla? So next time I make shortbread, I'm gonna try 1.5 tablespoons. I live dangerously. Hi, I'm Melissa Clark, and I'm here in the NYT Cooking Studio, and it's a new episode of Shortcut versus Showstopper. I'm gonna make a shortcut brownie, which just like mix it together in a saucepan, the after-school brownie. And then I'm gonna make a sophisticated brownie. I mean, as sophisticated as brownies get, right? This is the Showstopper brownie, and it has olive oil, cocoa powder, 2 different kinds of sugar. This is more of the adult brownie. It's not like it's harder to make the Showstopper brownie, but it has more sophisticated flavors. They're both delicious, they're both really easy, but they're both so different, and it's fun to make them side by side to compare. Brownies are easy, so you can choose which kind of brownie you want to make, and either one, it's just not going to be that hard. So you win no matter what. So the 2 brownies, there's the shortcut brownie. You just mix the brownies in one saucepan. It's really easy. It really does take about 6.5 minutes. And if you have a really good nonstick skillet, you can even mix it in the skillet and then bake it in the same skillet. Like, that's a shortcut. First thing, I'm gonna get my pan ready. Always do that first. For all brownie recipes, they go so quickly that it's not like you have time to stop and do your pan. I'm gonna line it with parchment. And the good thing about this is that I'm gonna be able to lift it out of the pan. It's gonna make it a lot easier to cut later. I'm gonna be able to just pull this right out of the pan. So I'm gonna mix the entire recipe right in the saucepan. I don't even need a bowl, it just all goes in. So this is 6 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. What's the difference between using bittersweet chocolate and unsweetened chocolate in a brownie? You're gonna get more flavor without any extra work by using a good bittersweet chocolate. There are actually some really good bittersweet chocolate chips on the market. You could use chocolate chips. If you see semi-sweet chocolate chips, you can also use that. Don't cut the sugar back though. You know that shiny top on a brownie? Like, that's why we love brownies, right? That comes from the sugar. So if you cut back on the sugar, you're not gonna get that crunchy, shiny top. I've got my chocolate is ready to go. I'm gonna put the butter in first, and I'm gonna have that start to melt before I add my chocolate. A thin layer of butter on the bottom of the pot will keep the chocolate from burning. I'm gonna lower the heat, and I'm gonna add the chocolate. And then you wanna just keep it stirring so the chocolate doesn't catch on the bottom of the pot and burn. You get it 90% melted, turn off the heat, and then it'll continue to melt, and it'll also help cool the mixture down. So the order that you add the ingredients is really important in a 1 pot, 1 bowl baked good. We're not adding the eggs yet because this is still warm. So we're gonna add the sugar next, and the sugar is also gonna bring down the temperature of the chocolate and the butter, and it's gonna start dissolving. I'd say 2 capfuls is the correct measure for this. Now, let's add the eggs 1 at a time and mix in between. I mean, I know using a box is a little bit easier than this, but I mean, how much easier really is it? Is it really that much easier? I mean, I guess you don't have to measure stuff out, which is good. However, if you are using a box, I have actually a really good idea. This works so well. I did it the other day. Instead of putting oil in your box brownies, brown some butter. Just put your butter on the stove, cook it until it smells nutty and looks a little brown. Use that instead of the oil, and then instead of the water, use bourbon. It's really good. Flour. Just adding it sort of a little at a time. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I just feel like it's sort of easy to whisk it in nicely. So I'm just spreading this in the pan. It's going in the 350-degree oven. I'd say start checking at 20, but it's probably gonna be more like 24 to 27, but start checking at 20 just in case. So what are we looking for? We're basically, when you put your finger on it, it should feel some resistance under there. It should feel solid. And I'm gonna call this done. So when you think about what kind of olive oil to use for these brownies, you want just a middle of the road good olive oil, because you're adding a little bit of that olive oil bitterness, that olive oil complexity, and you're gonna use it actually to grease your pan. Why not, right? And I'm just lightly greasing it, and then I'm gonna put parchment paper on top. So this recipe has a little bit of baking powder, aside from the flour, of course. Actually, it's important because of the olive oil. So olive oil it's pure fat, whereas butter is fat plus other stuff in it. You know, it has milk solids and water. So these brownies would be very, very dense unless we just put a little bit of leavening. I'm gonna measure the salt this time because it's 3/4 of a teaspoon. Just whisk that together so that it's evenly distributed. And then you can just put that to the side. So I'm using a double boiler for this one because I'm not melting the chocolate with any fat. I'm melting it all by itself. You actually want it to be simmering. That's actually perfect for chocolate, not boiling. When you are making a double boiler, you want to use a bowl that's bigger than the pot, right? And for some reason, I chose the smallest bowl that was bigger than the pot. If I had chosen a bigger bowl, I could hang on to it more easily. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was thinking I'm going to have to wash it later. All right, this is done. I'm just going to take it off, and I'm going to let the chocolate cool. I can just go here. Adding boiling water to cocoa helps bloom it. It helps bring out its flavor. It makes it taste even chocolatier. I like to use Dutch processed cocoa for this. It's a darker color, and it really does taste extremely rich. And now I'm going to add the rest of my olive oil, my melted chocolate, my egg, and then my 2 kinds of sugar. So just regular old granulated, and then this is dark brown sugar. And dark brown sugar has a molasses flavor. It has a richness that increases the fudginess of the brownies and also just adds that flavor, adds that molasses flavor to the brownies. So, okay, this is a very thick batter, so just be prepared. And let's add our flour mixture. Good time to switch to a spatula for this. Did I add the vanilla? I see the vanilla standing here. I don't think I added the vanilla. I'm gonna add the vanilla now, which is fine. Last but not least, chocolate chips. Into the pan it goes. So you can see how very dark and glossy this batter is, and that is because of the cocoa. And now 350. Again, we'll start checking after 20 minutes, but it could take up to 27, 28. My guess is it's gonna be 24 and a half. Let's go look. Hello, brownies. They are done. Now we want to sprinkle salt right on them as they're still warm, and this way they'll stick. Okay, we have our cooled brownies. I'm just going to go around the sides of the pan with this offset spatula. Don't use a sharp knife because you'll ruin your knife and you'll ruin your pan. I am going to show you a little trick for getting nice, neat brownie slices. Instead of slicing down through that crispy, crunchy topping, we're gonna flip these over and we're gonna cut them from the other side. All right, what's your taste? Corner piece. I can feel the chewiness by just breaking it. Chewy, fudgy. This is a fudgy brownie. It really is the after-school brownie of my dreams. This is just a brownie that loves you, that wants to be loved. It is a crowd-pleasing brownie. Now let's check out this one, Showstopper brownie. It feels like it's a little bit lighter, and that's probably from the baking powder. We've got a chew, but less sticky, if that makes sense. These are more like soft, dense, smoother in a way. This tastes like a chocolate torte, you know? You really taste the olive oil. You absolutely taste it, but in such a good way. You're like, wow, olive oil and chocolate? That is like a fancy combination. After school brownie, after a fancy meal brownie. Please your kid brownie, please your snobby adult friend brownie. They're not that different in terms of how hard they are to make. I mean, this one's maybe a little more complicated to keep track of, but you know what? You can't lose, you cannot lose. Simple, Showstopper, which is it gonna be? Make them both, just make them both. Double fished in the brownie. Where's my milk?